show.
Yep.
I'm going to tell you, I created a Magic event for my friends in the Madison area, Sam Black and Madison Player. It's for those Moto PTQs. Get some people over, have some fun, play some Magic together while Moto happens. The Facebook invite, it's a picture of Josh Cho with a blue envelope smiling at the camera.
Yep. Brian Ruble on the left-hand side, and he is also playing Bug Agent. He has Baleful Strix in his list as well, which is I'm not sure if it's Commander or one of those kind of products, but it's black and blue for a 1/1 flyer and Death Touch, and comes into play and draws a card. So a nice addition to an attrition-oriented deck. They are plane chase cards, and
I actually think that if he has that card and Josh Cho does not have it, it's going to give us very slight little nudge towards Brian Rubble. But in this near mirror match, I think we're talking about 55, 53%, that kind of thing.
It does very good work at battling planeswalkers. That's the upside of it. You would hate to use a removal spell to kill that thing, but it does attack in the air and can carry a Jit, whatever. So,
Death Touch is an ability I've become more and more respectful of. Vampire Nighthawk, for example, a card that really showed us, hey, Death Touch, even on kind of a clumsy-seeming creature, can really matter.
Yeah. So in response to that fetch land activation, Josh is going to pay 4 life and dismember the Deathrite Shaman. So now we'll see the fetch land resolve. Brian finds a tropical island.
That looks like that might be a nice, pretty tropical island.
Yeah, that's it's not beta, it's 4 in black border, but that's still not cheap.
Yeah. Do you prefer unlimited or 4 in black border dual lands?
I mean, 4 in black border dual lands are definitely the best, but or definitely better. But once you're in a space where you're splurging that kind of money, rather just save up and get the betas. Once you're already committed, you know what I mean. You're in for what, $400 or whatever. What's another $800, right? Nothing at that.
That's awesome.
It's practically nothing at that point.
Baleful Strix comes in, draws a card.
Yep.
Flying Death Touch artifact creature.
Yeah, and I think Strix is pretty awesome in this matchup. A lot of the other creatures, even Vendilion Clicks, just sort of die to removal spells and don't do really work fighting against cards like Jace, which is actually what the matchup's about. But Strix is, like I said, you don't want to actually use a removal spell on that thing, and so it can do some work holding down the ground against Tarmogoyf or attacking an opposing planeswalker.
So I was wondering what it was that Brian Rubble took out of this style of deck in order to fit in those Strixes. And you see it on the other side of the table. It's Ancestral Vision. So where I was saying nudge it a few points one way, let me dial that back and nudge it a few points the other way.
Sure. And Brian drew a Hymn that turn, but unable to cast it as he's lacking double black. And a Tarmogoyf to finish off his turn.
Tarmogoyf, a really awesome card in a deck that runs Baleful Strix.
Yep, it is an artifact and a creature, and has a habit of dying or ending up in your graveyard somehow. So,
I'm curious, does Brian Rubble have Cabal Therapy to go with his Baleful Strix? I feel like cards
does not.
Okay, I was curious. Cards like that, cards that draw a card in a deck that already has discard, sometimes often find themselves paired with Cabal Therapy because the cost for the flashback doesn't feel like much of a cost at all.
Yeah. Although I think it's a little awkward. It may be a little awkward just to play Therapy with Charlotte's Agent in your deck because you're often flipping over this card.
Oh, yeah.
Don't really know its name. And Brian is now going into Loam on Wasteland mode.
Oh, boy. Loam, a card not in Josh Cho's list. And this can be very dangerous if Josh doesn't do something, and it's hard to do anything about it, really. No Vendilion Clicks. He does have Force of Will, which is one way to answer a Wasteland Loam lock for a turn, and then it comes back to get you the next turn.
And he has no basics in his list. I mean, this is just... If he doesn't win this game quickly, he's just out of it. We saw Jerry T struggle a little bit with this in a feature match against VD, which he won that game because VD flooded out, but Jerry was basically down to 0 land at some point.
This is the deciding game of this match for these two players.
And you see Josh has a Abrupt Decay in his hand, but he actually would prefer to dismember this Tarmogoyf because he can't afford to sacrifice his fetch land with that active Loam going. He can't just go get a dual lane and have that get fired off next turn. He needs to build up a board of fetch lands to be able to make some big play. But instead, it looks like he probably is going for his green mana here.
This is essentially the elimination match for these players. These players, one of them will no longer be in the running for the top 8 if they lose. And if they win, they're still going to have to play the next round and then be on the bubble.
Yeah. So we'll see. Josh has a couple of copies of Nile Spellbomb in his list that could break this up, but he needs to find it pronto because this deck is so set up. One of the holes in this Jerry T build is definitely Loam for Wasteland. I mean, Wasteland in general is bad for this deck, but Loam for Wasteland is can be a game over by itself.
If you're just joining us, I'm Adrian Sullivan here with Patrick Sullivan.
Howdy.
Watching Josh Cho and Brian Ruble duke it out in a Bug Agent near mirror match. Brian Ruble, Life from the Loam, Wasteland. Oh, and there's a pass without a land drop for Josh Cho.
Yeah, and this Loam is just going to basically this inexorable grind. And Josh is also just, his life is also dwindling.
One claim I had heard a while back was that in a format with rational card drawing, Life from the Loam is likely to be the most absurd one of them.
Yes. Not every deck is susceptible to Wasteland, and Loam is pretty unimpressive if you're not looping Wasteland because there's so many insane things you can be doing in Legacy. But if you run into a deck like this Bug Control deck that's non-basic land, you know, some of these decks just can't afford to have basic lands because their mana is so tight. We've seen Brian here unable to cast his Hymn for a couple turns because, you know, he just lacks.
Here he goes. It's the Hymn to Torak finally getting shot off here.
Yeah. Just can't afford to put basics in the list, and then, you know, for the most part, that's okay. You're not going to run into Wasteland lock every round, but in a round like when you actually are up against it, I mean, this is just, it's hard to see a way for Josh to dig out of this unless he finds something to answer the graveyard very quickly.
He does have Nile Spellbombs in his sideboard, and this is a sideboarded game, so there are cards, but the window of opportunity is closing.
Yeah.
Josh Cho draws a fetch land. It's a little helpful.
It's the best land draw. It's the best land draw he has. Like I said, he needs to be able to set up some big spell or build up his mana base a little bit, and he can really only do that through drawing fetch lands.
Dismember takes out Deathrite Shaman, which presents a much faster clock for him than the Baleful Strix.
Yeah, we talk about these matchups being about, you know, locking someone out with Jace or grinding someone down with removal spells, but Josh is actually in threat of just dying because he's alt cast Dismember twice, and he's been taking these hits from the Strix.
We see the quick Life from the Loam dredging from Brian. In with the Strix, Josh down to 6.
And we're gonna loam back our Wasteland.
Un, deux, trois, 3 lands.
There goes the Tropical Island.
Take that, Tropical. And Josh Cho now. Boom. Does this work? Do I draw? Yes. 1, 2, 3 cards. And then he draws.
Looks like he drew a couple lands, some Deathrite Shamans. Deathrite Shaman here, not bad. In theory, could get Josh some mana and also give him some cushion. You could start attacking Brian's graveyard, get out of Loam lock, start getting some life to recover this balance. But I think Brian has been sitting on a couple of Abrupt Decays for a while now, and so I don't think these Deathrite Shamans are long for this world. Works in theory, but not in practice.
Just a little late to the party. Here's the Shaman.
Yep, and Brian looking at those abrupt decays. Josh falls to 5, fetching a land here.
Tropical Island from the Misty Rainforest.
And I assume we're just casting our other Deathrite Shaman here. There's no way we would expose our fetch land. Nope.
Oh, different choice.
Yep. I guess that Josh has him in his list. So, in the event that Brian doesn't want to get back his Wasteland for whatever reason, he wants to be able to draw him and be able to cast it. Small thing, but...
Second Deathrite Shaman, as you predicted. Brian untaps.
Now he can't loam for Wasteland and cast Abrupt Decay in the same turn. So
down to 4. Josh Cho takes 1. Are we gonna just see the double decay?
Yeah, it makes the most sense to me.
Fetch. Down to 17 for Brian.
It's really hard to imagine Josh being able to break out of the spot unless he's able to make mana next turn. So
here's the awesome thing for Josh. Josh has a land in hand and has a Shardless Agent.
Yep. So we have a hope and a prayer, right?
Josh successfully, via this double Deathrite Shaman, pushed Brian into this move of not wastelanding him.
Here we go.
Wasteland, Shardless. Is it a ridiculous miracle? Ancestral visions, maybe?
Okay.
Oh!
All right. All right.
Oh!
We might have enough. We might be able to power through this loam now. And you can see Brian starting to shuffle his hand a little more furiously than before. Now it's like he doesn't even have time really to loam for Wasteland. Josh has enough mana to function, and he needs to find like actual action now. He can't just be leaning on this Wasteland. He is going to get back his loam.
I think there was a moment not so long ago where he chose not to hit one of Josh's land.
Yeah, I mean he was trying to develop his board there. He definitely needed to kill those 2 Deathrite Shamans last turn. But Josh ripped the land, and now he's kind of broken out of it a little bit.
Josh Cho is not out of the woods. His life total is declining. He's down to 3. He's only got 2 mana in play. And his opponent has, I believe, a Tarmogoyf.
Yes.
Josh Cho needs to answer the Tarmogoyf. Needs to answer the Strix. Needs to deal with the Wasteland.
Yeah, there's getting attacked from a lot of angles here.
Ponder.
And we often talk about legacy mana bases as being sort of a free roll, right? It's like you have fetch lands and dual lands, so you always can cast everything. But these bug decks, they're also playing Wastelands, and they need to be able to cast Ponder, and Hymn, and green spells, and Jace. They often actually do struggle to cast all their spells in an efficient manner because their mana base is actually taxed in a way that, say, you never see Miracles or Esperblade really struggling for colors.
Yeah.
But this bug deck is definitely pushed to the limit.
Okay. Josh
Yep.
already laid a land there. Tarmogoyf. That's actually the only card in his deck that he could have laid there in order to not have to chump block with Shardless Agent. He has no go for the throats. His life total is too low for Dismember to work. Abrupt Decay costs colors of 2 varieties, and a Wasteland provides only colorless.
Yeah. So I don't know what the pause in action was. I think, all right, we're going back to loam action now. I'll let him in some lands.
Wasteland. I cannot tell. Glare.
I assume we're just gonna waste the trop. Okay, it's definitely one of the dual lands.
in with the Strix. He does not come in with the Tarmogoyf because he does not want Tarmogoyf and Shardless Agent to double block and then just basically trade a Tarmogoyf for a Shardless Agent.
Yeah. That Goyf is too valuable right now. Especially when it appears Josh might not even be able to cast Abrupt Decay even if it's in his hand.
Ooh, Josh Cho goes to 1 from that fetch land.
Curious to see what we got in the mix here.
Rubs his hands together furiously, excited for essentially a miracle. He's like, okay, there's a couple cards left.
Wait, anything?
I think what he's going to hope for is, I think he's going to cast Shardless Agent. I don't know if there's one in his hand or not.
Sure.
And hope to get an Abrupt Decay for the Strix.
That is asking a lot.
It is.
And we're still pinned under Wasteland even if that hits, you know?
Is Josh Cho from New Jersey?
I believe he's from Virginia.
So Living on a Prayer doesn't really count here?
No.
Okay.
I don't really know any Virginia artists to reference here. I guess Clips? All right, and there's Deathrite Shot. Yeah, that's not it.
Okay. Josh Cho knows it's done. Gives him the hand. Brian now moves ahead. And Josh Cho no longer potentially in the running for the top 8. Brian still has another round to win, and even if he wins it, he might not be making it.
I guess Grinding by Clips. That would be my in-theme Virginia song right there. But Josh Cho unable to take it down. Brian Ruble, I believe that's loss number 2 for Josh, who has had a weekend of bubble losses and mulligans in game 3, that sort of stuff. So it's been a rough weekend on the grind, but Josh is one of the most